Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. I guess I don't need those for a minute. Welcome to everybody. Welcome to all the new subscribers. We got people keeping on joining. Keeping on, right? Both here and over on Patreon. It's great to have you. I just got done, by the way. Somebody said, "What's Patreon?" Patreon is our other channel. I just got done putting one over there, by the way. That I just shot on being hard on new people. It's a jump off on a video that I saw Jocko Willink make, and I explain it over there. But I talk about the importance of being very hard on new people, and I talk about some training that I used to run and what my expectations were and why and things like that. And I think that's one of the most important things that people need to think about is when I won't say forming groups because you may have heard me say before, I don't necessarily believe in forming groups before an emergency situation unless it's based around, common interests or, religious beliefs, family, things like that. That's what most groups are anyway. But when you try to form a group simply out of this, hey, we want to prepare for emergencies, you're bringing in too many people, in my opinion, with disparate backgrounds and perhaps disparate belief systems and behavioral expectations and morals and standards and things like that. And I think that's very dangerous because when you form those things in good times, then bad times are going to expose all of the problems that you didn't see before. And I tell people it's kind of like, remember, when you're young and you're dating and you see that just beautiful, that man, she or he, whatever. In my case, it's a she because I'm a he. Uh, was that hate speech? Um, Beautiful. She's got everything in the world, right? Just like some guy that comes to your group and he's been X this and X this and he's got it all together and we want him on our team or in our group, whatever. And you say, oh man, she's beautiful. She's got a great personality. She's all that, right? And then she does something kind of wacky, you know, just out of something that just doesn't sit right with you. 95% of guys, and probably, I don't know, a good number of women will just a good number of women, because I know a lot of women that just kept on with rotten guys. Instead of saying, whoa, hold up there, Hoss, that's not, that doesn't seem right. Let's think about this. They tick it off to, oh, isn't that interesting? That makes them unique. It doesn't make them unique. It makes them a problem in waiting. So anyway, I talk about this over on Patreon. If you'd like to join us over there, love to have you. Links down below. But what I want to talk about here is preparing for an EMP attack. Every now and then, one thing or another, either a magazine, a paper, a news source, the government will put out a bulletin, beep, 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 prepare for an EMP attack. EMP, North Korea could do this, China could do this, Russia could do this. A lot of times it's just for a headline, certainly. But a lot of times, you don't know why. And I think that it's good that they keep it in front of the public. And I do want to talk about that today. I'm not going to get in, don't worry, I'm not going to get into too much of the science. I am going to get into what you can reasonably expect and what to do about it because I wrote a bunch of books on it. That's why. For you people who may be new here and don't know, I wrote the Stonemont series, of which we have the reversion, the revival, the renewal, and appeal to heaven, the blessings of freedom, and the sixth one is in the works right now. But it is about, actually, I won't tell you whether it's an EMP or a CME. You find out at the end of the second book, which I'm going to read something out of here in a minute. But it's about what happens when everything goes down and the rebuilding process, what happens, what you're up against, what you need to do. And the books are really a put in story form, a roadmap of how to prepare and what to do. That's really what they are. And I've told this before, I won't spend much time on this, but I started writing the first book, the reversion, simply because so many people kept asking me my advice of what to do. And I said, well, and they couldn't seem to kind of make it gel together. And I said, well, maybe if I put it in a story form, that would make it easier. And I had originally only meant to put, maybe a pamphlet, turned into a book, which turned into now 5 books. And it's been a lot of fun. Anyway, I would suggest you read the series. You can find it on, I didn't mean this to be a commercial, but I do suggest it because you should know. You can find it on Amazon in both Kindle and paperback. Just go and put in the Stonemont series by Stephen C. Smith, and you will see them. Well, there's a lot of kind of misunderstanding about EMP and CME. I'll talk about the difference. EMP is usually as a result of what's called high altitude electromagnetic pulse caused by a nuclear explosion in the atmosphere. They do have, a number of countries have EMP weapons that can take out the electronics and electricity from anywhere from a vehicle to a block to an area, and all of the advanced countries have that capability. The reason that I'm talking about this now is because with everything going on in the world, I don't think there's been a time that has been as conducive to something happening. Now, conducive might be the wrong word, but this is a very dangerous time. With everything that's going on with Russia and Ukraine, with everything that's going on with China, with everything that's going on everywhere, the chance for something popping off, whether on purpose or by accident, I think is greater than it's been for a long, long time. Maybe since the Cuban Missile Crisis. I don't know. We don't know exactly what's been going on in the background, for years and years and years, and how close maybe we've been to these things and didn't know it or not. And I'm not going to act like that I know. Nobody knows who's not in those positions. But what would happen? And then a coronal mass ejection comes out of the sun. I'm going to explain that in a minute. Matter of fact, maybe I should explain that now, and then I'll continue. And the way that I'm going to explain this, and it answers a lot of questions, I'm going to take this out of the preface of The Revival, which is the second book. I'm reading out of one of my torn up author copies, but I'll show you a nice one. Out of The Revival, which is the second book of the series. And it says, for many it was the end of the world, for others it was a new beginning. Well, that sounds like you probably like it. But I'm going to read out of my torn up copy here from the preface. And this will kind of explain to everybody who's new to it what this is all about, and it might kind of help review those of you who already know about this stuff. And there's a lot of people out there who know a little bit about this and make videos on it, and they're well-meaning, I am sure, because they're sincere. From what I can see, they are sincere, but they don't have a firm grasp on this stuff. Okay, I'm going to read this. It's just a couple of paragraphs, and then we're going to get back, and I'm going to kind of close it out with a little bit of discussion. Okay, on September 1 and 2, 1859, a solar coronal mass ejection, CME, struck the Earth's magnetosphere, causing a geomagnetic storm witnessed across the globe. So this is a CME. The northern aurora was seen as far south as southern Mexico, and the southern as far north as Australia. Gold miners awakened in the middle of the night to prepare breakfast, thinking it was daytime, and telegraph systems across America and Europe failed, shocking operators and setting papers on fire. Observed and documented by amateur British astronomer Richard Carrington, it was dubbed the Carrington Event. If a Carrington-class CME struck Earth today, it would destroy all electrical grids and electronic components worldwide. Now, this is not me saying it. This is the scientists who study this saying it. A nuclear-induced electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, would have the same effect. In either case, the EMP Commission estimates, that's a federal commission, estimates that 90% of those in affected areas would be dead within 1 year from starvation, disease, accidents, and the violence that accompanies the collapse of society. How probable is this? In their 2012 report, the American Geophysical Union projected a 12% chance that a Carrington-class CME would strike the Earth within the next decade. The chance of a nuclear-induced EMP attack from one of our global enemies, we have no way to know. Okay, I'm going to cover this kind of quickly here because it's important. It's important that I get all this information in. Okay, as far as the CME, they say a 12%. They go back, and those who know how to study these things have determined that one of these Carrington-class EMPs, or CMEs, occurs about every 150 years. The last one that hit us, or hits us, the last one was in 1859, so we're overdue. We had one come out of the sun not long ago, but it wasn't aimed directly at us, so we skirted that. I don't think that means that we have another 150 years. So we're overdue for that. But when they say that there's a 12% chance per decade, realize what that means is playing Russian roulette, Ukrainian roulette, whatever. If you have one of those 8-shot Smith & Wesson 357s, and you put one round in the cylinder, give her a spin and shut her up, who would be willing to do that? Okay, that's a 12% chance. Would you do that? And if you wouldn't, would you prepare against something like it? Nobody would do that. You'd be crazy to do that. You ever see The Deer Hunter? That's probably one of the best renditions of that I've ever seen. That's an old movie. You old guys have seen it. You young people say, what? When it gets to and so that's it. That's it. But the thing is that some people will say it sends us back to the Stone Age. It doesn't. It sends us back to the early 1800s, simply pre-electronic and pre-electric. Now, electricity. Now, the good thing is, probably 90% are going to die off. Okay, bad. I don't mean to say that's good, but there are some among my friends even who say an EMP is the only chance we've got. It's the only thing that can straighten stuff out. Maybe they're right. But anyway, we still have the knowledge. Okay, it takes 90% of the population out, but that doesn't mean that we have to rediscover everything, because many of the discoveries up till now are there. We know what they are if they're written down. And so we know what can be done. So it's a matter of coming back through the Industrial Revolution. And actually, I deal with that a lot in my books. I show how that comes back, how people rebuild the abilities to do things, and how they rebuild communities, and how they rebuild states and societies. It's fascinating. It's fascinating to me anyway. And for many, many people across the world who have bought my books. Back to the EMP. Very directed. It doesn't have to be China or Russia or somebody else popping a nuke up above us. Okay, it's easier than that. First off, understand there are 3 grids in the United States in the lower 48: Eastern, Western, and Texas. You don't have to send this thing 100 miles up. It's a line of sight. So a nuclear device can be put on a Scud missile, shipped over in one of these container ships that are floating around out there outside our ports, right, just waiting to go. And then when they want to, they pop it up. They pop one up over the East Coast, they pop one up over the West Coast, and they pop one out of the Gulf over Texas, and bam, it only has to go up about 10 miles. Bam, lights out. Or if they just did one of the grids. Can you imagine if everything east of the Mississippi was out? Can you imagine if everything west or Texas, whatever, if it was even one, it would destroy the economy. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people would die. And then it would suck all the resources in from the other areas to try to help those areas, and it would leave those areas open to invasion. Now, the people out there will say, well, I just may as well die because I don't want to live through something like that. Well, those people aren't preparedness minded. Those people are victims in waiting, and they'll be part of the 90%. If you don't want to be part of the 90%, if you want to be part of the 10% who survives and stays around long enough to try to rebuild something the way you think it, whatever your guts and your determination, your strength can do it, then you need to make sure that if you are not prepared now, you are either starting or you are working like the Dickens to get everything together you need to get together to be able to survive that. For how long? Forever, until you reinvent everything, because it would take me longer to explain why these transformers can't be replaced quickly. Just trust me or read it up on your own. I don't care. But we are dangerously close, in my opinion, to an EMP, whether that's purposeful and who knows by who, or whether it's accidental. And so I always tell people, prepare for an EMP. If you are prepared for an EMP, you're prepared for pretty much anything. And that's really the goal, because anybody who selectively prepares for something, they're limiting themselves. So they're saying, well, I don't want to die from this, but I don't mind dying for all that other stuff, right? Prepare for an EMP. Prepare for a CME. Prepare for everything. And that takes general preparedness, and it takes a lot. But if you want to know how to do it, I've got loads of videos in the history here. Go back, for those of you who haven't kind of been up to speed on this stuff, and learn about them. Go back to one of my very first ones on preparing for an EMP and food stockpiling, and then get make sure that your shelter is in order. Make sure that your self-defense items are in order. Make sure that your food and water is in order. Make sure, to the extent that you can, that the people around you that you're going to have to depend on are kind of tightened up on this stuff, because you're all going to be depending on each other. Anyway, what are the chances of this happening? Who knows? But like insurance, I like to have some insurance, and I think you do too. So remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. Preparing well is what it's all about. You all have a good day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.